Today we're going to talk about medians. We have talked about 3 different things in a triangle so far. The first thing we talked about was an angle bisector. And so what we know about an angle bisector is that it splits an angle into what? 2 equal parts. Halves are 2 equal parts, okay? The second thing that we talked about was a perpendicular bisector. So what does perpendicular mean? Forms a right angle, and then bisector means it cuts it in half. Okay? So perpendicular bisector forms a right angle and cuts something into 2 equal halves. And then what we learned Tuesday was altitudes. Do y'all remember what altitudes do? Okay, they go from the vertex of the triangle straight down to the opposite side and form a 90-degree angle. That's all they do. They form a 90-degree angle. Okay? And now today we're going to learn about medians. And the medians also start at the vertex of the triangle, and then they go to the midpoint of the opposite side. So they're similar to an altitude, except it doesn't form a 90-degree angle. It splits the side into 2 equal parts. So if we're looking at this picture right here, it starts at C, which is the vertex, and it goes down to the midpoint of the side opposite. So D is actually my midpoint, and it makes A to D congruent to DB. Okay? So all median does is come down and make 2 equal parts. Okay? Now, the center of a median is called the centroid. And that's just where all 3 of the medians meet. Okay? So, looking at this picture, can somebody tell me what one of those medians may be? Remember, it goes from the vertex to the opposite side. So what would one of the medians be here? It's got to be a line, a whole segment. So B to Z is one of them, because it starts at this vertex, goes to the opposite side. What's another one? A to Y. Very good. And the last one is X to C. Okay, the thing about centroids is the long piece. Does everybody see how from B to Z, from B to P is obviously longer than P to Z? So I have a long piece and a short piece in that whole piece. Okay? That happens every time. From A to Y, AP is my long piece, PY is my short piece. What the centroid tells me is my long piece, for instance, A to P, is going to be 2/3 of the length of my whole. Okay? And so that formula, generically, because this is the formula for each of these, the formula for this generically is my long side equals 2/3 of the whole. Okay? And so let's kind of talk through an example of that. Let's say that B to Z, this whole length right here, was 12. Okay? That means that B to P is 2/3 of 12. The easiest way that I know to do that is to take this whole length and let's split it into 3 pieces. So if we have a length of 12 and we split it by 3, what would that give us for each length? 4. Okay? And so if this is 2, if B to P is 2 of those 3 lengths, how long is B to P? 8. Okay? So this whole thing is 12. This is 8. Let's try that again, because some of you got that, some of you were like, Okay, let's say A to Y, this whole length right here, is 15. we know that A to P is 2/3 of this. So I want to take 15 and split it by 3. What is 15 split by 3? 5. So that means that if I added all 3 together, that would be 15. This is 2 of those 3 pieces we just split up. So what is 2 of those 3? 5 plus 5 is 10. Does that make sense? Okay, let's try one more. I want to get everybody. I got almost all of you. So let's say that X to C is 9. The whole length is 9. So we're going to split it into how many pieces? 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. So there's 3 lengths of 3 that make up that. C to P is 2 of them. So if I take 3 and I add it with my other length, 3, how long is it? 6. Perfect. Okay, so let's try some examples now. Okay, so for number 1, they tell me that MA is a median. Okay, so remember, what does median mean? It hits the midpoint, which means it cuts it into 2 equal parts. Okay, so immediately I want to go ahead and put my tick marks to show that these are equal. So it tells me that C to A is 8x minus 3. And it tells me that A to T is 5x plus 18. Okay, so what would I do with those 2 things? Set them equal, because they're equal. So we do 8x minus 3 equals 5x plus 18. From here, we're just going to solve for x, so we subtract 5x from both sides. That gives me 3x minus 3 equals 18. We would then add 3 to both sides. 3x equals 21. Then we would divide by 3, and x equals 7. Is that pretty simple?
Yes.
Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2 says YO is a median. So when I say median, that means 2 equal parts. Those 2 equal parts, which 2 things are equal? DO and OG, very good. So it tells me that DO, this length right here, is 5x minus 1. That's DO. And then DG, yes. No, I said those 2 were equal. Then D to G is 3x plus 12. Okay, so what do I do if I have a half and a whole? Very good. 2 times part equals whole. So we're going to do 2 times 5x minus 1 equals the whole, 3x plus 12. I'm going to distribute my 2. That gives me 10x minus 2 equals 3x plus 12. From here we just solve for x, so we subtract 3x from both sides. This gives me 7x minus 2 equals 12. From there we would add 2 to both sides. That gives me 7x equals 14. Then we divide by 7, and x equals 2. Okay, so all that median means when it's talking about sides of a triangle is that the 2 pieces that it splits it into are equal. So that's how we're going to set up to solve every time. All right. Next, I want to look at the back. So some that have some x squareds in it. So let's look at 7. So in number 7, it tells me KD is a median. So if KD is the median, what side is being split into 2 equal parts? Okay, so AK and KO are equal. So do I need 5x squared plus 2?
No.
No. Do I need 8x squared minus 3? No. What are those? Distractors. We do not need those. And this got cut off on your sheet. It should be 10x squared plus 6. Okay, so to solve this, we're going to take these 2 pieces that we know are congruent and set them equal. So this would give me 10x squared plus 6x equals 4x squared plus 24x. Okay, so we're probably going to have to factor because there's a squared, so we want to put everything where? On one side. So let's move our 4x squared by subtracting 4x squared. That's going to give me 6x squared. I also want to move 24x, so how would I move 24x?
Subtract.
We would subtract 24x. So 6 minus 24 is a negative 18x. Okay, does anybody know what type of factoring we would use here? GCF. So we're seeing what they have in common. What do both of them have in common? 6x. Very good. So if I pull out a 6x, that's going to leave me with x minus 3. Do y'all remember what the x outside is equal to? Very good. 0. And what would this x be equal to? 3. Perfect. Okay. Let's try number 9 then. Okay. Number 9 tells me that YU is a median. So if YU is the median, what 2 things are equal? LU and UV. So am I going to be using this x or the 7x that is in here for these angles? Nope, they're distractors. Ignore those. Okay? So it tells me that UV, this piece right here, is x plus 3. And then it tells me that LV, this whole length, is x squared plus x minus 14. So how would I set that up? 2 times part equals whole. So 2 times x plus 3 equals x squared plus x minus 14. So I take my 2 and I want to distribute that out. That gives me 2x plus 6 equals x squared plus x minus 14. Okay, so from here, what should we do?
Put it on one side.
Get everything on one side. So do I want to move 2x plus 6 or x squared plus x minus 14? 2x plus 6. So how would I move this 2x over? I would subtract 2x from both sides. I want to line it up with its like term. Is x squared going to change? No. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down. X minus 2x is a negative x. And then I also want to move the 6 over, so I'm going to subtract 6. And that's going to be a negative 20. Okay, so this is factoring by trinomial method. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my parentheses. What letter goes in both? X. And I'm looking for something that multiplies to give me negative 20 and adds to give me a negative 1. Very good. Negative 5 and 4. So this would be negative 5, positive 4. And then when I get what x equals, what happens? They swap. So it would be a positive 5, negative 4. Perfect. Okay. Now let's look at the centroid and make sure we got that. The centroid. The center where all the medians connect. Okay, so we're looking at this figure right here. Can somebody tell me what one of the medians is? NQ is one. Okay, what's another one? RL and PM. Very good. Okay, so it tells me that RL, this whole median right here, is 21. Okay, and then SQ is from S, which is the centroid, to Q. Is this the short piece or a long piece of this one? This is the short piece. Okay, so they asked me first to find LS. So LS is this length right here. Is this short or long? Long. Okay, so how much of that whole length is the long? 2/3. Okay, so I need to take 21 and do what to it? Divide it by 3. So that means there's going to be 3 pieces of 7. I need 2 of them, so what would that give me? 14. So LS equals 14. Okay? Then they asked me for NQ. NQ is this whole length. Okay? And so if SQ is just one piece of 3 pieces, how would we get that whole? Not 4 divided by 3, because it's 4 the whole length. You would multiply. We would do 4 times 3. Because, think about it, if the long is, remember the long is how much of the line? 2/3. So what would that leave the short to be? 1/3. Yeah, somebody over here said divide. Okay, so that means that this would just be one of the 3 pieces, and so we'd have to multiply it by 3 to get the whole. 4 plus 4 plus 4. Okay? All right. Okay, so I want to go over how to set some of the worksheets up, or some of the problems off the worksheet. So looking at 13, it wants me to find x when I'm given ET. ET is this piece right here. So is that the long, short, or whole piece of the? It's the long. Okay. So ET is my long, and EM is my whole. Okay. And so the formula that I gave you that told you how the long compares to the whole was long equals 2/3 of the whole. Okay? So that's how we would set this one up. So our long is 3x plus 2 equals 2/3 of my whole, which is 5x. Now, how many of us hate fractions? Yep, that's what I thought. So how do we get rid of a fraction? Multiply. No, we don't get a decimal. We multiply both sides by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. So I'm going to distribute this. This gives me 9x plus 6. And then what was the point of multiplying by 3 over here? To cancel out the 3, so now I just have 2 times 5x. What is 2 times 5x? 10x. Okay, from here it's a simple solving for x. So we subtract 9x, and that gives us x equals 6. Isn't that pretty simple? Okay, a lot of people got really confused, so I wanted to show you that. Now, 14, really quick. I'm going to make your life super simple. All of these have the same denominator, so what should we do to get rid of the denominator? Okay, so I'm going to multiply this by 5, which basically cancels out my 5, And I'm going to multiply both of these by 5, which is going to cancel out both of these 5s. So KT is now 6x plus 6, and KB is 11x minus 6. Okay, and then you just decide, is that the long piece, short piece, whole, and then plug it in. Now, one last thing. What if they gave me the short piece and the whole piece? Do y'all know what that formula may look like? How does the short compare to the long? Very good. The short is 1/3 of the whole. I think there is one problem that gives you the short. So that would be 1/3 of the whole. So just so you have that so you can solve.